Thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today on our joint Cintoo and Autodesk webinar. Just to remind you, this webinar will be recorded for future use. If you do have questions, please type them into the Q&A panel, and Simon Shaw and myself, Rob Rasnick, will answer those during the demonstration, and if we have time afterwards, we will bring those up during the Q&A portion as well. I'd like to introduce our guest speakers for today. So we have Anna Lazar, who's the Technology Partner Relationships, Strategic Partnerships and Alliances with Autodesk. We also have Dominique Poulikin, who is the CEO of Sintu US and the Product Manager of Sintu. Following that, we will have Marco Schub, who is the BIM 360 Specialist and CAD Manager at Axalta, Germany. And finally, we will have Tony Hunter, the 3D Visualization and Information Consultant with BP. So briefly to go over today's agenda, we will give, Autodesk will give a brief discussion or presentation around the Autodesk Construction Cloud and what that means for their customers. Next, we will talk about Cintoo Cloud, just a brief overview of how Cintoo Cloud can help bring together Autodesk BIM 360 and Autodesk Construction Cloud data using laser scanners. Next, we will have Axalta talk about how they use Autodesk BIM 360 as well as Cintoo Cloud in conjunction to help perform on their projects. And then we will have Tony with BP, who will also talk about how they use Cintoo Cloud and Autodesk BIM 360 with Autodesk Construction Cloud. And finally, we will follow up with a Q&A session. So now I would like to turn this over to Anna Lazar with Autodesk to review their Autodesk Construction Cloud solution. Take it away, Anna.
Thanks, Rob. It's great to meet or to speak to all of you. Thanks, Sintu, so much for having me. I'm very excited to talk on this subject and to just get some time to spend with all of you to share a little bit more about what we're doing here at Autodesk, particularly for folks in the construction phase. Can you go to the next slide for me? So I think you all know, and I probably don't need to spend a lot of time saying that construction processes are fundamentally collaborative, but fundamentally fragmented. Communication happens in a lot of different formats, including paper still. 70% of the construction industry and construction processes still happen on traditional paper-based processes. This becomes an added layer of complexity when you think about communication between teams, from the job site to the office, across subcontractors, when you're adding in owners and EPCs, and it just continues to add complexity. And really what happens is that paper information becomes rapidly stale. And so then we see with the invent of the iPad and this last year of remote work, this huge adoption of technology that's starting to happen. But with that technology adoption, there's a proliferation of applications that occurs. And then you have lots of siloed technology sources holding different pieces of data based on the problems that they solve, which can also create a whole different set of challenges. And so tools really do need to be integrated. So standalone applications create disconnected workflows, create a lot of, rework, rekeying information into tools or mistakes being made. And, just a really inefficient use of time, spending time on manual tasks like data entry or double data entry. And so this is why we talk about building a platform and not just building a technology suite. And that platform can not only help with the digitalization of your construction and build processes, but also integration with the favorite tools you have in your tech stack, like Cintoo. And so the goal is to give people a consistent technology experience as they move through different phases of their buildings. Next slide, please. And so this is really what connected construction is about for us, and this is our platform. We focus on building technology that supports workflows spanning from design, plan, build, and then ultimately into the operation of the building with shared data across those phases. It's connected to inform decisions during design, during construction, and also during the turnover of data for operations and ongoing management of assets. A lot of analysis of that data helps identify and prioritize and resolve problems earlier in the life cycle and earlier in the building, and so it doesn't cause as many issues. And then we have connections to the partners that you need. Next slide. For just a little bit on how we got here, we have always had a really strong offering in tools like Revit and Navisworks, with a really strong presence in design with design workflows. We began to focus on construction phases with BIM 360. And I think over the last few years, you've seen us continue to acquire leading construction tools like PlanGrid for managing 2D drawings, or Building Connected, the builder's network. And so our development strategy is to continue investment in all of our products to really strengthen that core product portfolio, but continue to also expand our reach by adding new tools into the suite. Building meaningful integrations between these products so that people have those consistent workflows. And then, really ultimately unifying those tools to create consistent products and workflows, delivering a unified platform where champions come together. And so what that unified platform really looks like, next slide, is this Autodesk Construction Cloud that we announced last year at Autodesk University. And so Autodesk Construction Cloud comes in 4 pillars. We have our 3 workflow-based solutions, Autodesk BIM Collaborate, bringing that design strength to the cloud and bringing an online experience. Takeoff to help with your 2D and 3D takeoff and analysis. And then Autodesk Build to manage project management, cost management, quality management, safety, project closeout, all of the things you need while building an asset or a building. And then finally, there's Autodesk Docs, which is that unified common data environment underneath all of the platform, really helping create consistent project data, having consistent model data, and consistent access to data from our partners. And so as you start to adopt the latest and greatest technologies, that's only the first step. One more slide, please. And so as you adopt and digitize these tools, that's really when you start to see the value of digitalization. But moving off paper isn't the end all be all of it. That's the first step. And then you start to look at workflow integration, ways to bring those processes together, leveraging tools in an integrated fashion, which is why I'm really excited to have BP and Axalta talk about their experiences leveraging tools in an integrated fashion. I often joke that if Dominic and I do our jobs well, we can make 1 + 1 = 3 for all of you. And then finally, that 3, that optimization, finding new ways to automate, new ways to enhance processes as they become standardized, integrated, and really, one time I worked with a customer that talked about having fully integrated and fully digitalized processes creates an always on culture where you're continuing to improve. And so I think that that's really that value. And so this is why we have built this strong technology ecosystem. We have tools that focus on workforce collaboration, helping integrate communication and collaboration tools, just to keep internal and external teams aligned. We've got tools in mixed reality, bringing together MR, VR, reality capture, 3D models, photos, laser scans, 360 photos, virtual walkthroughs. Everyone knows there's a gambit of tools out there that people can use for document and file management. Same thing with project management and scheduling. You've also got to think about, your back office processes, so financial management, data and analytics, and then finally that site and safety management tools. And so that's really why we've doubled down and really invested in being a platform. Next slide, please. And I think it's something that we're very proud of here at Autodesk. We have over 180 direct integrations plus hundreds more that can be enabled via our integration platform, Autodesk Connect. And so, having this available helps avoid standalone software applications and instead creates connected solutions, making data available, making notifications consistent. And so with our partners, there's actually 3 ways that people will interact with these integrations. I think this is my last slide. Next one, please. And so when you, the customer, are going to find these integrations, there are 3 types here. Mostly for this conversation, I'm going to highlight the first 2 because those are the ones relevant to our Cintoo integration. But we have partner home cards, which in BIM 360 are right on the home screen, and in Autodesk Build are under the Insights tab, where people can go and create their perfect project dashboard by leveraging all of our partners and our own AI tools and analytics tools to really build a one-stop command center for your project, where you can see all of the applications in one place and really see what's going on with your job site there. We also have our API integrations where people are actually passing data back and forth between these tools. That's when you're seeing us pull a model into Cintoo, pushing laser scan data out, really making sure that that data itself is connected. And then we also have Autodesk Construction Cloud Connect, which I briefly alluded to earlier, our integration platform that enables hundreds of integrations with really common SaaS applications out there, like Dropbox and Box and Smartsheet and even your email. But really, I think for the focus of this conversation, I want to show you all that Cintoo integration and let you see how it can impact your business and how it can be used in real world settings. And so for that, I'm going to pass it over to Dominic to tell you a little bit more about Cintoo and their integration.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Anna. Let me introduce Sintu Cloud to you. I'm Dominic Pouliquin, based in the US, the product manager for the platform. So what we do really is at the convergence of digital twins and reality capture. We do have a platform called Cintoo Cloud that will make your laser scan data fully cloud compatible. And by making it cloud compatible, it will make it easily shareable, distributable. You can enrich this scan data, of course, with measurements, annotations. We can connect the platform to other BIM platforms like BIM 360, now Autodesk Build, and then extract meaningful information from this data. The core technology behind has been developed over the last 10 years. It's a possibility to turn your point cloud data into a very high resolution 3D meshes. And that will make the data about 10 to 20 times smaller, much easier to upload to the cloud. Not only that, but those meshes will be also streamed very fast in a web browser. People would call us the Netflix for 3D data for this very reason. And this is what we do really well. So we make the data much easier to view, to interpret. You would navigate it much more easily. And this is what we do. What we can also do is do the inverse transformation. We can go back from the mesh to the source point cloud data so that you end up with the right RCP file like in a Revit or Navisworks or AutoCAD. So this is, Cintoo Cloud is serving two big industries, I'll say, globally speaking, the digital twin industries, like Industry 4.0, people in the oil and gas, in the manufacturing, into automobile spaces are using Cintoo Cloud today. But we also started strongly from the beginning with BIM and construction. So we have, say, basically three kinds of value proposition with the platform. First one on the left-hand side is a possibility to view, share, collaborate on your reality data in a meaningful way using this mesh-based viewing, which makes the data much easier to view and interpret. Now anybody can see the data. Anybody can go virtually on a job site without being physically on this job site. The second type of value proposition is around quality control, comparing your as-built conditions coming from your laser scan to your BIM or your CAD model, on making decisions based on that. And this is where the integration back to BIM 360 for pushing your issues, for example, is really key as well. And last but not least, we're also building strong foundations for everything around asset management. So being able to automatically detect assets in your scans, being able to connect those assets to your digital twin platforms or your IoT platforms, and make Cintoo Cloud your preference 3D dashboard. So in terms of data workflow between Cintoo Cloud and Autodesk, what we will do, we will take your data as a RCP, E57 or FLS file. We'll do a local transformation point cloud to mesh running on your PC. On this, everything uploaded will be mesh-based, and everything in the cloud is mesh-based. It runs on Amazon or Azure. And if you want to distribute, of course, at that stage, you can enrich with measurements, annotations. You can do a lot of stuff in the web app. But if you need to distribute the data back to your desktop world, we can do it like in Autodesk Revit, AutoCAD, or Navisworks. we can do it in two ways. Either you will turn back the mesh to a point cloud and you will get back your E57, RCP, RCS files, the ones that you need for those software, or we can also create unified meshes in OBJ, STL, FBX files, and this is what you will be using for your clash detection or things like that. In terms of cloud connectivity, we also will be pulling BIM models from Autodesk BIM 360, now Autodesk Build as well, like IFCs, Revit files, NWC, NWD, DWG. We're using the Forge platform to do that. And you can push back issues, report, analysis, BIM back to BIM 360, but also partner software like BIMtrack or Procore. In terms of integration, we also integrated with Project Home, so you can have a shared view of your scan data inside, a Cintoo cloud within your Project Home, within your BIM 360 dashboard. And this is very easy to do. So in terms of streaming, so you understand Cintoo Cloud is all about streaming meshes into web apps or desktop apps. Well, we recently launched a new Cintoo SDK that will be able, by which you will be able to stream these high-resolution 3D meshes in game engines like Unreal or Unity. So in order to build rich, immersive or collaborative experiences, mixing scan data on CAD information. If you want to know more about that, let us know. Let me go through a quick demo. And before this demo, this is to let you know that we have just reached 1 million scan mark uploaded to the platform over 2 years. So we're really happy with that. This is about 2 billion square feet of laser scan data that have been uploaded to the platform so far, about 200 million square meters, so about 2 times the size of Paris. We're really proud of that because this is a sign of maturity, scalability, robustness, and cybersecurity. We're also SOC 2 compliant. So let me run this quick video that will show you the technology in action.
So let me show you a quick demo of Cintoo Cloud. So here I'm using Google Chrome. I have access to my list of projects on a map like this or via thumbnails. Let me show you an interesting example that we just got from SSOE, which is the scans made for the renovation of the former elementary school for Martin Luther King. So you have about 471 scans here. Now when I go into the 3D view, I will be streaming those 471 scans very quickly in my 3D view here. Okay, you see how fast we can stream now. Okay, when I go into one of the scan positions like this one, the first thing I will see is of course the 2D panoramic image, but we also turn that into a 3D surface. When I go to the 3D surface mode, I will be seeing the very high resolution mesh corresponding to this exact scan position. Let me show you the streaming. When I go to the next vantage point, like this one or this one, you see the streaming happening, you see, until you have the finest level of detail. And if I zoom in, I will be streaming even more level of details until I get the resolution of the scanner. Of course, you can add the color to it. Okay, so this is exactly what this technology can do for you. It will reveal details in your laser scan that you have probably never seen before. And of course, this kind of mesh-based view makes it much easier to view, to share, to interpret the data. You can easily make any kind of measurements. Let's make a measurement constrained by the z-axis, which is a new feature here. I go from the floor now. I want to know the clearance from this to this BIM structure. You can also navigate the project in 3D navigation. Okay. Here I have various display shaders. Everything we see here is mesh-based. Let me remove those icons for the moment. Okay. And for example, this is the X-ray vision shader, where you see exactly the scan layout through the building. And you can use this kind of view to make some slices to create crops. I will crop eventually along the z-axis here, create a slice of my data. I can change the display settings to the RGB or surface, select the crop I want for my 2D drawing in AutoCAD, for example, save my crop, and then export it as a point cloud or as a mesh in FBX, OBJ, or STL. Another interesting example of what you can do with this platform is this project, courtesy of our good friends at True-Point Laser Scanning. In this one, not only do you have various scans, like 103 scans, and you can see they have been spread over various work zones. This is also another cool feature from the platform. But we also have CAD models, BIM models, and we have also 2D drawings. Now, what I can do is, for example, start by watching the east side scans, so 24 scans now being streamed very fast in my browser, as you can see. Again, I can change the display settings. I can activate some backface culling so that you can see the inside of my project at all times, from any angle. You can see the inside. Now I can select to add a 2D drawing, like here, you see. I can also add more scans, like the north side. Okay, streaming very fast now, or even the 70 scans of the west side. And you can see, and now what we can do, for example, is add the BIM model as well. On one of the very interesting features of the platform, and of course the way, sorry, before going into this, the way you would upload a BIM model like that will be to connect to your BIM 360 account. You go to Upload Models. You have two choices here. The first one is to upload an IFC from your disk, or to connect to your BIM 360 account to be able to pull either an IFC or Revit file, a Navisworks file, or DWG, or even a JT now. So once you have, of course, we assume that scans on BIM have been aligned using survey points, but you still have the option using our manual alignment tool to align the scan to the BIM or the BIM to the scan inside the platform as well. So coming back to this comparison tool I was about to show you, I will select a vantage point like this one, for example. So from this exact vantage point, we can see scan on BIM on 2D. Okay, so what you will be using is a comparison tool to compare your scans to your models. And you have two tools here. The first one is called, let's start by the visual check tool. With the visual check tool, you can use the transparency slider to go from the scan data only. So this is the as-built conditions from your laser scan. You can go to the right now and see the BIM model or the 2D drawing as well. Let me remove the BIM model so that you can see the 2D drawing. And you will see that in this case, you see that the door is not at the right location. Let me add the BIM model again. This is even more obvious now. To make it even more obvious, you can activate the visual diff tool here, which creates a heat map. On here, you will see that I can adjust the tolerance. So everything in green is a good match between your scans on your BIM model. Everything in red is data that is in the as-built condition, so in your scan data, but not in your BIM model, okay? So like the example you see here, the door is red by 1 foot, which is about the distance missing on your CAD model. Okay, well, so what you want to do next is you document those kind of issues, of course. So you place a 3D annotation here, say it's an issue, which say, okay, this door off to be replaced, whatever, add a severity parameter, a due date, eventually add text, photo, video, hyperlink, PDF, and you can assign it to a team member, and then you create the annotation. Next step is to link those annotations with BIM 360 or Procore or BIMTrack. So you go to Report, this is the one I just created. Okay, you can export that as a PDF that contains hyperlinks to those issues. You can also export as BCF, which means BIM collaboration format, or you can integrate cloud to cloud with BIMTrack, Autodesk BIM 360, or Procore. So in this case, I will be pushing this one to BIM 360 so that this issue coming from comparing the as-built conditions to the BIM model can be sent to your project coordination and then so that you can make some decision based on that.
So this is what I wanted to show you. Now I'd like to leave the stage to Marco at Axalta. Marco, I will be playing your video, but feel free to stop at any time.
Yes, hello. First, I'd like to introduce myself a little bit. I'm Markus Schuh, located in Germany at Axalta. We do most of the time plant engineering in our department in so-called brownfield areas. And for that reason, we decided to use an efficient tool, what brings us an easy opportunity for all the users to have the chance to view the laser scan data in comparison with all our 3D planning models. So we can start with the video. I call it BIM 360 meets Cintoo to show that they work seamless together. First of all, here is a short look into our BIM 360 platform. Here you can see one of our overall models. It's done with Navisworks, just to show you what we are doing. It's a collaboration work model from several departments like civil, piping, and so on. So good. And the next step would be the same area with a look from Sintu Cloud, so that you can see the laser scan data in that area. Here you can see it is the same area, but this is showing in Cintoo.com. And we put all those laser scan data from all of our projects in that platform, just to make sure that everyone is able to see the project areas. So here's that what also was showing in this presentation before, that you can step from one point to another point. We do our upload. We are directly connected to our BIM 360 platform and to our projects. Here we add a model from our project. We go to the project files in BIM 360, done over the Cintoo.com platform. Next screen shows you a split level screen, so that you can see that it's really the same data source. So you are looking, you can say, through a window in Cintoo.com and looking into your BIM 360 project. And then you choose the model import. And from that point on, everyone is able to see the laser scan data together with your planning model from several departments, what was generated with Navisworks. Here is a mixture of laser point data together with the Navisworks model. So here you can see that they match together very good. And it's a mixture of existing data and new planning elements. We like to choose the 3D RGB view because it gives the user, yes, a good view that you have, you feel like in the real area together with your model. And for that reason, I like that view very much. And in that view, you are also able to see at a glance if there is a clash or whatever, or something like that. So on that stage, we go also from one point to another, look from top to down, just to see that all the data are very easy to handle just in your browser. We also like to go through the overview map and crop those views. Easy done, direct in the Cintoo cloud platform. We choose here a front view and try to do some cut sections. And it's a nice feature that you can go from one point to another in that cut section. You can move your cut section. And there it is really easy to see if there is something wrong or if there is a mistake or whatever. Also, measurements for sure are possible. I just want to show that. You can store them or save the measurements so that everyone is able to see that. it's quite nice to do some annotations. We do here a test annotation just to click a point, mark it as a note, and say something important to that. Here in that case, attention, clash with a handrail. And then the annotation is created in your project and everyone is able to see that. Now it's very interesting to push your issues from Cintoo directly to BIM 360. Was happy to have this new feature. So here's another project from us, also just to show you what kind of area we are planning and what size of area we handle with. Here, the same area also again in Cintoo.com. And in that case, we want to add another annotation, but in this time, in another way. First of all, we can link our Cintoo project directly to our BIM project, to the integration tab. So we submit our project, and now this point cloud is linked to our BIM 360 project. And then we want to add another annotation, but in this case, we want to do the annotation as an issue, not just as a note. So picking a point, choose issue instead of note, give them a name, call it test, it's medium. It's a chance to have a due date in that, and for sure to add another notice. And then you can assign those issues to someone. I just assign it to myself and create those this annotation. And from that moment on, it will show the annotation of the issue in our report tab. And again, on the integration tab, I push that annotation to my linked BIM 360 project. And back in my BIM 360 project, going to the issue tab, I see my issue. Et voila, that's it. Quite easy, very seamless, and nice to have these features. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marco. Very, very interesting. Let's the stage to Tony now. Tony.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Tony Hunter, and I am a 3D visualization consultant working for BP. I've been within BP for around just over 3 years now, and we've really been working to make the information work a lot harder in making data ease the use in which people are going offshore and maintaining and managing the information and taking more responsibility for the data that they have. And it really echoes what Anna was mentioning at the start, where initially we had huge amounts of data. If you just jump to the next slide, Dominique, just the one slide there before I'll jump into sort of live side. We had huge amounts of information that was siloed, and we knew this information existed, but it was all tied behind the service companies and the engineering work that we're doing off the back of that. What we did, and what we had a bit of a campaign where we decided to identify how much data actually existed. So first and foremost, we went to every company who'd ever doing laser scans in the North Sea and asked them for their laser scan data. That led to me regretting that decision, because I ended up with a box full of 40 terabytes plus of laser scan data on hard drives, all named under the projects they'd been laser scanned at, sometimes not identified by the asset they were even relative to. But that led to a discussion as how do we make that data work, and how do we even identify that information? And what I'll do, Dominique, is I'll just jump straight into share my screen, if you don't mind. If you could just enable that for me, please.
Yes, certainly. Tony, more. You should be able to do that now. Please try.
But there's 3 key ways in which we are utilizing the data. We have one aspect.
Sorry, Tony, we don't see your screen yet.
Okay, no problem.
Let me stop sharing.
Perfect.
That
there now?
Yeah, now we can see your screen.
Excellent.
Perfect.
So there's really 3 data sets that we're harnessing and integrating between Sintu and BIM 360, and it really touches on one in Dominic's and Marco's presentations there as well, where we have layout plans for basically visualization and understanding where the laser scans exist on the asset on each level. We have the models for, again, being able to as-build areas of the model and queries and do QA/QC checks on models to make sure that the as-design information correlates with the as-built information. And finally, helping to ease offshore trips and save costs by using existing as-built data for detailed design, constructability reviews, and any sort of scope of work that requires usually an offshore survey trip for a survey team, piping design teams, etc., to get out there. So through that, we very basically just put all the information within BIM 360, and again, replicating what Marco had done, shared that within the projects we have in here. And very quickly, we were able to identify a lot of information. So as I said, we had 40 terabytes of data. But one thing we did know is that all this data was carried out to survey deliverables, and all the models were tied to platform grid, as was the point cloud data. So what we're able to do very quickly within Cintoo, rather than painstakingly going through the data, finding out what it was, making notes of where it was, and making changes to the data and combining it, we decided to just throw all the data into Cintoo and start working it there. We then integrated the models and the layout plans to give better context. We were able to identify very quickly where overlaps in data was, and we were able to, as you see here, combine to show all the model information, whether it's layout plans, the full asset model, or design scopes. We have the scan data organized into each relevant level and the jackets associated with. We can have the archive data, so we don't want to just throw away all the data. Maybe some of the older laser scans will shine light on something that was maybe previously installed, or there's been a modification that's changed. So we didn't want to just lose the first instance of the changes. And also a landing spot to make sure that anytime any new survey data has been captured, it was loaded into this scan data new folder, and allowing us to then do the checks and changes to the data and making management quite easy. So first and foremost, we were able to obviously look at the layout plans. So you can see here, if I load in Seller Deck, you can see we have the integration there from BIM 360, allowing us to view that. And very quickly, for people who just want visualization and to look on the asset, I can select this. It will open up the overview map showing this information. And then I'll be then just with the tick of a box on the scan data side here, I'll be then able to show all the laser scans we have in that area. And you can see how quickly these will start to populate in this space, and the scan data along with that. And right now we're looking at 459, and I've had upwards of 1,000 on view at one time. And because of the compression that goes on with the data being uploaded, it really gives people a great context, because there's a lot of information that goes through deck levels and goes across the length of an asset. So we need to make sure that we can view data en masse and quickly. And you can see here, we can switch that to, usually switch it to X-ray mode. Again, just giving that context of the layout plan and all the information on there. And this has led to an awful lot of positive use case. One of the big ones we had was we identified by loading in the sort of safety walkways you can see in the layout plans here, we were able to actually correlate that against what was on the documents that we had, and found that the documents were out of date. And through no fault of anything else, we managed to update and make the changes to that. And because this information's been available for such a long time, we started to make the data that we had, as I say, naming conventions a bit all over the place because they're based on projects. We were able to very quickly create a proof of concept to say, well, we want to now do asset captures. So that led to Clare Ridge having a full asset capture. As you can see, we have over 6,500 laser scans in here covering all the decks and levels. What that then enabled us to do was to establish control networks on the site as well. Again, this led to another sort of positive use case, because we knew surveys were always going to be required. We knew we were never going to capture absolutely everything. But one of the biggest benefits we knew we were going to have from that was that with the control network established, sometimes survey jobs and engineering design scopes end up being mothballed or pushed back because there just isn't bed space offshore, or even in the last 18 months with COVID having an even bigger impact in trying to get people offshore, it's increased the difficulty and these scopes being completed. Now, because we have the control network established now, we've went through the process of training core crew on the assets to use the laser scanners. We spent a little bit of time with the core crew and actually send the laser scanner offshore for the data to be captured. And we use this information to actually show exactly where it needs to be captured. And we're tying in with people like inspection engineers who understand the asset, they understand sensitive equipment and things like that. So we're getting really positive results from that as well. So if we do find ourselves to have gaps, then we're able to look at that information. So I'm going to jump quickly into another project here. As you can see, I can quickly jump into other projects. One of the next ones I want to show is the sort of QA/QC of the as-built models. So as I was mentioning earlier, we can go into the as-built models streaming from BIM 360, and quite quickly the model will load in. Now, one of the things we identified as part of a TAR planning scope that was being carried out on the asset was that this package here was incomplete. But incomplete is not really the sort of full definition of what it is. A lot of packages and equipment on offshore assets are usually modeled by third parties and tools like SolidWorks, where you end up with one very detailed but ultimately dumb model where it's just a lump in space. And we wanted to have more information and have the ability to sort of fix these things. So we've been really pushing these tools to the users to identify, rather than us going and fixing every single package, identifying everything that needs to be fixed relative to work that's actually happening on the asset. So that very quickly creates a priority list and a backlog for us to start getting at things. But for this instance, there wasn't an awful lot of information at all in this space. Now, what we were able to do was identify all the laser scans we had in this area. We shared the information. We know all the lines that were coming in and out. So accurately, every single line coming into this package is there. It's just inside the package itself. We just have essentially a boundary showing where it exists. What we were able to do was access the documentation, share that with the design team, and in 7 days turnaround, we had the model loaded in. And then again, we loaded that in here for sense checks, checked it against the point cloud data, shared it with the design team, and republished the model to show all these changes. And that obviously, because we're tying into all the documentation, enabled us to have all the valves and lines and equipment named in this space, which made it far easier for the TAR planning teams to be doing isolations and planning their work scopes. Now, the sort of final and the largest thing we've been pushing within Cintoo was going back to what was mentioned earlier, cutting these offshore survey trips. Now, it's very difficult to try and do that if we don't have the sufficient data, and we really needed to up the communication between the vendor design teams and between the operators itself, and sometimes not only between onshore and offshore, but between the sort of client and the service company. Communication can be difficult sometimes. And because we're within this tool now, we can incorporate everyone as part of the design process, from survey teams and design teams to even lifting teams, scaffolding. Everyone who operates within the space can get to see exactly what's going on and when. And I want to just again show another part of this where we're going into the design scope. So part of one of the larger projects we have at the moment is the Seagull project, and I asked the design teams from our vendor to load in every single design scope that's happening in the immediate future. We end up receiving this. Now, we want to be able to go through this and identify it, and that's exactly what we've done. We've been able to load in scans very quickly to say, okay, I want to look at level 1, level 1A, and you can see the scans appearing as I tick these boxes, and the data will continue to load, but at the risk of overloading things, I'll keep it to level 1 and 1A. But what I'm able to do now is basically based on what Marco was showing and what Dominique was presenting in his example as well, I'm very quickly able to sort of jump into the point cloud data and identify areas and query the data. Now, we want to make sure the design teams are happy. We don't want anyone having to use data that they don't feel is good enough. And we certainly don't want them to use data that they don't think is accurate enough. And that's where we use this space, is to not tell people how to do their job, but simply a gateway to access information to make better decisions. And the way we've done that is, again, using the tools that Sintu provides, where I can jump into a space, jump into one of these scans, and very quickly use the manual alignment and comparison tools to identify the design scope against the scan data, and using the visual check tool to move between both data sets. Now, I can now have a conversation with the designer to say, okay, based on the information you require for where your tie points are and where you're going to be doing this design scope, is there enough information in this space to carry out this job? And they'll either say yes or no, and we'll work with it either way it goes. The idea being that if we have enough data, and we don't have to send an offshore survey team for calculating things like bow hole rotations and flange deflections, or for doing constructability reviews. We're saving that offshore trip, and we're making sure that job continues, really pushing the efficiencies and how we can do things, and creating a higher value of bed space. You want to have people like fabric maintenance and construction consistently offshore to make sure repairs are being made and modifications are happening seamlessly. And this enables that to happen. And as well as that, we're also able to sort of split between that and the mesh view. So we can actually say, well, we want to look at this in surface mode. And really, again, if we want to locate welds or identify pieces of information on a line, again, we couldn't explain how impressed I was by this, the ability to sort of identify the locations of welds along lines. We do have them in drawings, but again, it's a great way of understanding where these things exist within this space. So that's everything I want to cover with this just now. So I'll just stop sharing. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was really a great presentation. Thank you, Tony. Let me go back to sharing my screen. And I think now is a good time for some questions that maybe have been asked by the audience. Rob, Simon, do you have some of those questions?
Yeah, did you have a poll that you wanted to pull up?
Oh yeah, this is good. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you very much. So I'm running a quick poll. Launching poll. First question is about, would you like to be connected to someone at Autodesk to learn more about the product's integration? So I'm guessing that most of the audience know about Autodesk already, but who knows? And the other one is about the same question for the Sintu people. Okay, so we'll give another 30 seconds.
Sure. And while we're filling out that poll, I do have a couple questions for Tony and Marco. So, Marco, could you kind of give us an idea of like how often do you scan your facilities, and what does your scan to BIM workflow look like?
Yes, for sure. So we do the laser scan at least for every new project, or we try to have a look if this area was already scanned in further projects. And the main reason is to have these scan data as a basic data set to begin our new project, to know what is the reality in our different areas, because there's so much changing all the time, and want to make sure that we have the real reality as a basic data and not an as built from 1 year ago or whatever. And for that reason, it is often or mainly used as a basic data set. And then the project will start with some new models, with planning data, with implementation, and so on and so on. And finally, it is done, and then we try to do a finish laser scan data to compare if the elements what we want to build fix to that what is now in reality built. So we call it a negative clash check.
Cool. And Tony, I'm going to ask you a quick question too. And this, I don't need hard numbers or nothing, but just trying to figure out how much time has using Cintoo and Autodesk saved you from your previous workflows?
An insane amount. I think previously the way the process would work was that a survey trip would be organized based off the back of a design. That would then require, firstly, a trip for people to go out and plan. So the designers would go offshore for a few days to go out and look at things, identify what was going to be done good, do initial constructability reviews, and refine their models back in the office. Then the request would be for a survey team to go out and capture as-built information in that area. Now, the sort of irony of that is that as-built data, if it was based on a modification, would almost immediately be out of date. So we were always one step behind all of our captures. And what we've changed now is that we have multiple teams operating within this space, not sending people offshore. So we're not sending people offshore for planning and preparation. We're not sending people offshore for capture for survey as-built data, because we have as-built data existing. Any gaps we find, we're sending the laser scanner offshore to have that information captured and sent back to the survey teams to process, and then to the design teams to sort of use the data. And then it's a case of just continuing to push and continuing to push. I mean, with the development of putting the control networks in the back of the data as well, we are now flipped the sort of relationship with how the operators and how we're looking at survey data. We're now consistently looking at having as-built information. It means we can consistently keep our models up to date and constantly improving things, because you've got to have one eye on decommissioning with a lot of these things. With all these data sets set up together and maintained properly, the sort of cost savings are huge.
Great. So I think we got time for one more, and this one I'm going to kind of tee up here for Dominique. So we did have one question come in, which I thought was really good. And it was really about, how do you manage change and reflect those changes throughout the project life cycle, whether that be BIM models or through scan data. So from scan data, to answer that side of it, you can manage that inside of Cintoo. So if you go out to a site and let's say you need to scan it every week or every 2 weeks, what you can do is actually set up work zones, which you saw on the Project Explorer on the left side. So you can set up a work zone for each scan date that you go out. So that way you can kind of manage your scans through time. From a BIM 360 perspective, we're looking to make several more improvements from there. So I'd like to have Dominique kind of address where we're going at for the future with BIM 360 and Autodesk Construction Cloud.
Yes, let me add to what you said, Rob, that the comparison tool that Marco, Tony, and myself has been showing also works for comparing scan to scan. It's being used most of the time to compare scan to BIM or BIM to scan, but it also can be used to compare various, iterations of your scan data. So we can compare scan to scan, and this is why you would put them in separate work zones. Absolutely. Coming to BIM 360, what we have today, you can pull models, but we don't have yet implemented the automatic sync. So what if the model has been updated on the BIM 360 side or BIM Autodesk build side now? We are going to implement the first version of giving the users the possibility to check for updates. So every time you will be coming to Cintoo Cloud, you have an opportunity, if there is a BIM model, of course, or a CAD model, are there updates of the same model in BIM 360 or BIM Autodesk Build? And this is what we're gonna see in the next few weeks. So you will have this possibility. This will be step one. Step two will be for looking for automatic sync or automatic updates, but this is another story. Does it answer your question, Rob?
Sorry, I was on mute. I do have one last question and then we'll call it a wrap. So we did have a couple questions come in around what type of reality capture data are we going to support now and into the future. So we had some questions around mobile scan data, drone data. Is that something that we'll be bringing into Cintoo either currently or in the future?
So yes, we're already in beta phase for uploading mobile indoor mobile data. Okay, like the data coming from the Navis devices or the Leica BLK2Go or the GeoSlam or others like that. We can already bring that. The way we do that is that we restructure the unstructured data. Okay, basically we create vantage points along the camera path or not along the camera path, depends if we have a camera path or not. Although we recreate vantage points, and then you will give the users the possibility to navigate on unstructured data as if it would be coming from a static scanner. And we believe it's a very efficient way to do that because most of the people, they love the scan-to-scan navigation, makes it much easier to view and navigate. So this is what we're offering. This is already in beta. So if you have data sets, feel free to try. On the other beta we have is for uploading 360 images, like the one coming, from those devices that capture 360 panoramas. And we will be adding more. So at some point, Cintoo Cloud will be your hardware agnostic multimodal platform for all kinds of reality data in a single same coordinate system. Yes.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for your time today. If you have questions around pricing or just more about Cintoo, you can go to our webpage at www.cintoo.com. If you would like to have us follow up with you with questions regarding today's webinar, please feel free to contact us. You can reach us at sales@cintoo.com, or you can also get us at contact@cintoo.com. Once again, I'd like to thank our panelists. Great job, great information. And from there, I guess we'll sign off, and thanks everyone for attending.